The Vought F4U Corsair, one of the most distinctive and legendary fighter aircraft in aviation history, emerged as a marvel of engineering and a symbol of American naval aviation supremacy during World War II and the Korean War. Its instantly recognizable inverted gull wings, massive propeller, long nose, and aggressive silhouette making it one of the most iconic combat aircraft of the 20th century, and its reputation as whistling death, cementing its place as one of the most feared machines to ever take to the skies, a reputation earned through innovation, adaptability, and relentless performance in combat. Conceived in the late 1930s, when the U.S. Navy issued requirements for a carrier-based fighter capable of exceeding 400 miles per hour, Vought aircraft designer Rex Beisel and his team set out to produce an aircraft that could outmatch not only existing American fighters but also the best that potential adversaries like Japan and Germany might field, and to achieve this they centered the design around the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 Double Wasp, an air-cooled, 18-cylinder radial engine delivering more than 2,000 horsepower, one of the most powerful piston engines of its time, which required a giant three-bladed Hamilton standard hydromatic propeller measuring over 13 feet in diameter to absorb its power, and this in turn dictated the Corsair's most famous design feature, the inverted gull wing, which allowed the landing gear to be short and sturdy for carrier landings while providing the necessary ground clearance for the enormous propeller, an elegant solution that not only solved structural challenges but also gave the Corsair its iconic bird-like shape. The prototype XF4U-1 first flew on May 29, 1940, and during testing it became the first American single-engine fighter to exceed 400 miles per hour in level flight, achieving 404 miles per hour, a feat that made it immediately the most advanced naval fighter in the world. But despite its promise, the Corsair encountered significant challenges before it could fulfill its potential, including difficulties with carrier landings caused by its long nose, which obstructed the pilot's forward view, its tendency to bounce upon landing, and stall characteristics that made approaches hazardous, leading the U.S. Navy initially to favor the more forgiving Grumman F-6F Hellcat for carrier use, while the Corsair was relegated primarily to land-based operations with the U.S. Marine Corps. But this turned out to be a blessing in disguise, for in the hands of Marine aviators flying from rough Pacific Island airstrips, the Corsair earned a fearsome reputation, dominating Japanese fighters such as the Mitsubishi Ace-6M0 with its superior speed, climb, dive, and rugged durability, and from its first combat operations in 1943 over Guadalcanal, the Corsair began racking up impressive kill ratios, with some squadrons claiming 11 enemy aircraft destroyed for every Corsair lost in aerial combat, and its adaptability allowed it to excel not only as a dogfighter but also as a ground attack platform, carrying bombs, rockets, and machine gun firepower to devastate enemy troops, bunkers, and shipping. The Corsair's nickname, Whistling Death, came from Japanese troops and pilots, who were terrified by the distinctive high-pitched sound created by airflow over the wing root intercooler inlets, a noise that preceded sudden and often devastating strafing runs, while American pilots and Marines on the ground affectionately dubbed it the bent wing bird. And despite its initial rejection for widespread carrier use by the Navy, modifications were made including a raised pilot's seat, a new semi-bubble canopy, improved landing gear, and changes in landing techniques that eventually allowed the Corsair to become fully carrier capable by 1944, after which it operated from fleet carriers alongside the Hellcat, giving the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps an unparalleled 1-2 punch in the Pacific. The Corsair's combat record was extraordinary, credited with more than 2,100 enemy aircraft destroyed in World War II, with 64 Marine and Navy pilots becoming aces flying it, including legendary figures such as Gregory Pappy Boyington, the colorful and controversial commander of Marine Fighter Squadron 214, the Black Sheep, who achieved 22 confirmed kills in Corsairs before being shot down and captured, and Tommy Blackburn of VF 17 Inches the Jolly Rogers, who led one of the most successful Corsair squadrons in the Pacific, while pilots like Ira Kepford became famous for their individual victories, in Kepford's case 16 kills in Corsairs, and the aircraft's ability to absorb damage and bring its pilots home further endeared it to those who flew it. In addition to U.S. service, the Corsair was operated by the British Fleet Air Arm, which, facing a desperate need for high-performance carrier fighters early in the war, adapted the Corsair more quickly than the U.S. Navy and successfully operated it from smaller British carriers with modifications, using it in the European and Pacific theaters against German and Japanese targets, while the Royal New Zealand Air Force also employed Corsairs effectively in the Pacific, flying them against Japanese positions on islands bypassed during the Allied advance. And after World War II the Corsair's service was far from over, for it continued to serve as a frontline fighter and ground attack aircraft during the Korean War, where jet fighters like the MiG-15 had surpassed it in speed and climb performance, but the Corsair found a new niche as a rugged, hard-hitting close air support aircraft, flying dangerous low-altitude missions against enemy troops, tanks, artillery, and supply lines, often carrying rockets, bombs, and napalm, and despite facing jet opposition, Corsair pilots still occasionally scored victories, such as Lieutenant Guy Bourdillon, the U.S. Navy's only ace of the Korean War, who achieved 5 kills in a radar-equipped F4U-5N night fighter version, demonstrating the Corsair's adaptability to new roles even in the jet age. Production of the Corsair lasted from 1942 until 1953, with over 12,500 aircraft built in multiple variants, making it one of the longest production runs of any piston-engine fighter, with versions ranging from the original F4U 1-inch birdcage, with its heavily framed canopy, to the improved F4U 1A with a raised cockpit and better visibility, the F4U 1D optimized for carrying bombs and rockets, the F4U 4 with a more powerful engine delivering speeds of up to 446 miles per hour, the F4U 5 with further improvements in all-weather capability, specialized night fighter versions such as the F4U 5N with radar pods, and the O-1 ground attack variant with additional armor and payload capacity, each serving different but vital roles across its career. Internationally, Corsairs also saw extensive post-war service, with the French Navy using them in the First Indochina War and the Algerian War, where they provided close air support in rugged terrain against determined insurgent forces, while Latin American nations such as Honduras and El Salvador operated Corsairs well into the 1960s, with the type seeing combat in the so-called Football War of 1969, a brief but intense conflict between Honduras and El Salvador, in which Corsairs on both sides engaged each other in what became some of the last dogfights between piston-engine fighters in history, decades after jets had become the norm, further adding to the aircraft's legendary status. Culturally, the Corsair remains etched in memory not only for its wartime exploits, but also for its presence in popular media, most notably in the television series Ba Ba Black Sheep, later renamed Black Sheep Squadron, which dramatized the exploits of Boyington's VMF 214 and helped introduce the Corsair to new generations, and today, restored examples of the aircraft remain prized warbirds at airshows, where their inverted gull wings, powerful radial roar, and graceful yet aggressive lines continue to inspire awe, serving as flying monuments to the era of piston engine dominance. The Corsair's legacy is one of resilience, adaptability, and unmatched performance, for in its lifetime it transitioned from cutting-edge naval fighter to ground attack workhorse, from Pacific Island battles to Korean War sorties, from American carriers to British and French decks, from the skies of Okinawa to the jungles of Indochina, from duels with Agile Zeros to clashes with MiGs, and finally to a bizarre but historically fascinating finale in the Central American Football War, a testament to its enduring utility. And when historians and aviation enthusiasts rank the greatest fighters of World War II, the Corsair invariably stands alongside the P-51 Mustang, the Spitfire, and the Bf-109 as one of the absolute pinnacles of propeller-driven combat aircraft design, but with the added distinction of being perhaps the most capable carrier-based fighter of its era, a machine that overcame early setbacks to achieve extraordinary success, and whose blend of speed, firepower, ruggedness, and adaptability made it beloved by its pilots and feared by its enemies, ensuring that the bent-wing bird, the whistling death, will forever be remembered not just as an aircraft, but as a legend of aerial warfare, a perfect union of American engineering brilliance and combat necessity that served its nation and its allies faithfully for more than 3 decades.